Iron Mike Tyson is one of the most powerful and feared fighters in the history of boxing. Nearly every punch he threw had the potential to knock out his opponents. But what truly set Tyson apart from the brawlers of his era was his dedication to technique and his deep understanding of boxing fundamentals. Tyson didn't just rely on raw power, he combined it with a mastery of mechanics and innovative approaches, making him a devastating force in the ring. Two of Tyson's signature punches were his leaping left hook and arching uppercut, both unique, explosive, and designed to dismantle even the most skilled competitors. These punches weren't just about brute force. They showcased Tyson's ability to adapt, shift stances, and manipulate angles to outthink and overpower his opponents. The leaping left hook. At first glance, Tyson's leaping hook may look similar to the classic gazelle punch, a shuffling lead hook used by many greats before him. However, Tyson took this punch to another level by integrating his advanced stance shifting techniques. Instead of simply moving his back foot forward in a shuffle, Tyson would forcefully shift his hips and widen his stance midair. This movement carried him far past his opponent's center line, turning what began as a lead hook into a rear hook by the time it landed. What made this punch so effective was its versatility. Tyson could adjust it based on his opponent's movement. If his opponent moved to the outside, Tyson would cut them off and force them to walk directly into the punch. If they pivoted inside, Tyson shifted right, intercepting their movement with precision. Despite these variations, the setup always looked the same. This made it nearly impossible for opponents to predict. The leaping hook wasn't just versatile, it was also incredibly powerful. Tyson would start the punch from a deep crouch, generating massive momentum as he shifted his weight from foot to foot. By the time the hook connected, Tyson's full body weight and rotational force were behind it, creating a devastating impact. Another key aspect of the punch was Tyson's ability to cross far past his opponent's center line. This allowed him to generate the kind of follow-through typically associated with a backhand punch, only he was doing it with his lead hand. This combination of power, precision, and adaptability made the leaping hook one of Tyson's deadliest weapons. The arching uppercut. While Tyson's leaping hook ended many fights, his arching uppercut remains his most iconic move. So unique was Tyson's execution of this punch that it became immortalized in the classic Nintendo game, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! The uppercut, often misunderstood in competitive fighting, is notoriously difficult to execute correctly. Many fighters rely solely on twisting their hips, which limits the punch's power and trajectory. Tyson, however, took a different approach, drawing inspiration from the great Jack Dempsey's advice in championship fighting. Dempsey recommended dropping down and swaying the hips forward to generate power, and Tyson perfected this technique. By leaning at an extreme angle, Tyson stretched his shoulder and extended his hand forward, creating a straight line for the punch to travel through. This allowed the uppercut to pierce directly through the small gaps in his opponent's guard with precision and power. Tyson often deployed this punch when his opponents attempted to clinch. As they reached to grab his arms, Tyson would take a small step back, leaning at such an angle that his arms were out of their reach. The only thing they would meet was Tyson's fist. This tactic not only punished opponents for trying to tie him up, but also left them with fewer and fewer options as the fight progressed. The master of adaptation. One of Tyson's greatest strengths was his ability to strip away his opponent's choices, narrowing their options until they had nowhere to go. His understanding of positioning and mechanics allowed him to throw punches that were difficult to categorize. His hooks and uppercuts often defied traditional definitions, blending elements of multiple techniques to create something uniquely his own. For example, Tyson's leaping hook could intercept opponents no matter where they moved, and his uppercut could punish them whether they tried to clinch, move forward, or defend. Tyson's mastery of these punches wasn't just about power, it was about controlling the fight, leaving his opponents confused, overwhelmed, and ultimately defeated. Technique meets power. Tyson's positioning and power mechanics were so advanced that he could get away with techniques that most fighters wouldn't dare to attempt. His ability to create angles and maximize the force behind his punches made him not just a knockout artist, but a true boxing technician. For instance, Tyson's deep crouch allowed him to load his punches with tremendous force, while his ability to shift stances mid-attack added layers of unpredictability. Whether he was throwing a leaping hook or an uppercut, Tyson's punches were always calculated, devastating, and perfectly executed. a legacy of brilliance. At his peak, Tyson was a true master of boxing. His ability to blend power, technique, and adaptability set him apart from any other fighter of his time. While some of his punches may appear unconventional or risky, Tyson's deep understanding of the fundamentals and his innovative approach to movement allowed him to execute them with devastating effectiveness. Watching footage of Tyson in his prime, it's easy to see why he remains one of the most celebrated figures in boxing history. Few fighters have ever been able to combine such raw power with technical brilliance, and even fewer have been able to dominate opponents in the way Tyson did. And for those who doubt the sheer force of Tyson's punches, just watch the footage of him lifting opponents off the canvas with a single shot. Whether it was his leaping hook, arching uppercut, or any of his other devastating techniques, Tyson's punches were a testament to his status as one of boxing's all-time greats. Who would you like to see broken down next? Leave your suggestions in the comments. And by the way, while reviewing Tyson's footage, I couldn't help but laugh at one clip where an opponent's feet lifted clean off the ground. It may have been reflexive, but with Tyson, it's hard to say for sure.